So EA had a conference call yesterday, and it was reported on last night about the Q4 reportings and various projections they're doing with their games and their business. And apparently, the old way of how they release products or release games doesn't really work anymore. Now, this is interesting because they made their money off Anthem, for example. In the case of their in terms of money they made, overall EA is very happy with its digital business, which now amounts to 75% of its profits. And Anthem was its most successful digital game ever, selling more copies digitally than any other game in its history. So they've released a crappy game and they made a lot of money off it. And what that means is they're going to support that game. They've made a lot of money. So they, we continue to invest heavily in Anthem with developers working on game quality, content systems, and game mechanics. It's great original IP. Ooh, and we doubled down on the product, said COO and CFO Blake Jorgensen. They, this is strange. They have the money. They made their money from Anthem, digitally at least. They're going to keep going with it and supporting it. But they also have to change the way they make games, which is strange. And the way that they describe it, or at least Andrew Wilson, the CEO, said, you're moving from what was initially a BioWare game, which would be somewhere between 40 and 80 hours of offline play, to 40 to 80 hours of offline play plus 100 or 200 or 300 hours of elder game that happens with millions of other players at scale online. He's referring to after you've done everything in Anthem or in an online game, what do you do next? What is the game loop? What is the end game solution? And they actually have a site dedicated to that on their help.ea.com subdomain, talking about all the things you can do, how do you learn experience, how you level up, and all that stuff. So he's talking theoretically here because obviously Anthem is not an offline game. And it's odd that they say this because the way they characterized Anthem, or at least this as an example, 40 to 80 hours of offline play. So they want to have the offline play, the single player experience still, but then throw in 100 to 200 to 300 hours. So they're adding more to the game, which is not necessarily what gamers want. Compare that to Mass Effect 3, which had a multiplayer component, which wasn't necessary. It was a nice addition. I would say a very good addition. And the way they introduced it was stress tests for the first weeks or first 2 weeks before the game launched, or sorry, in December. Yeah, it launched months later, but it was using that option for real-time tests with actual gamers to get them interested in the game, as well as fix bugs that popped up. That was a good way of doing it. They were more efficient that way. Maybe they were using Unreal. That's why. Who knows? It was just a better way of making the game. Now, this article is strange as well because he's talking about games being bigger. Yes, games are being bigger or being made to be bigger, but that's not necessarily true. You don't have to keep doing that. You can make blockbuster titles without blowing your bank and without destroying your development team. You should expect that we'll start to test things like soft launches, the same things that you'll see in mobile space right now. And it also comes down to changing how we communicate with players. That's interesting. I mean, the problem with Anthem wasn't that the publisher wasn't communicating with the players. The problem with Anthem, at least from EA's perspective, is that they weren't communicating with BioWare as much as they should. Essentially, they just gave BioWare carte blanche, and they came back in 5 years and say, hey, where's our game? And they got pissed off until they finally released a demo to them that had flying. And they thought, oh, this is good. I like this component. And they ran with it because no one knew what they were doing at Anthem. There was no nailed down design that they were going for. They didn't know the style of game that they were making. They didn't know the game mechanics themselves. And that's why you heard that giant horror story from Kotaku with Jason Schreier. So I don't think this is going to change how they make games, but more communication with the actual client or the user, the gamer, is always a good idea anyway. So this is not a bad thing. It's just you're missing the point that was Anthem. EA should have taken a more hands-on approach or a more observant approach to Anthem's development, because it wouldn't have turned out the way it did. If they were like a hawk overseeing them, saying, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" So the way that software companies can fix this idea is not really a publisher approach, because the problems of Anthem was not EA. The problem with Anthem was BioWare. It's a developmental approach. So they need a new methodology. They need a new framework for thinking how to make a product. And in general, I think the past 10, 15 years, this has happened in all across software development. We take away the waterfall approach and we have what's called the Agile methodology, which is rapid development or rapid prototype development. So in web development, I can say, at least I know, we do things within 10 minutes, essentially, and we show off something in 10. So we do something very quickly, and we publish it, and someone looks at it like a project manager or a QA person, and they say, oh, this is what we want. And then once you have that prototype or that working solution, you then add to it. You add the interface level, you add the right color scheme, the right design, whatever it is that that function was supposed to solve. So obviously that's a little different in game design or game development. So things could take maybe an hour to prototype or longer, and it has to be indicative of the design. So they know what they're doing, and then the problems could pop up from there. So you see the working prototype, you say, okay, this design matches the prototype. Is this going to sell? Or sorry, is this going to work? And then the developer will say, well, no, it won't, because I tried this and that, and it didn't really do what the design had in mind. Maybe the designer didn't know what they were doing. Maybe the skill set of the developer wasn't good enough. Maybe the tool set wasn't good. Who knows? There's all kinds of factors that go into what makes something work. So it's curious what EA's perspective is on all this, because all they do is they buy companies and give them money so they can produce what they're already doing. So this really isn't much a publisher problem. It's a developer problem, and how to understand scale and management and functionality. So there's no scope creep. They got the right people doing the right things with the right tools. I think that's mainly it, not so much what the publisher does, but who knows. We think that we're in a really good position for this. I think this gets really hard if you don't have scale to do this. That's true. But understanding scale is more important than having it. And so we feel very good about it. And over time, we hope that we can lead from the front and help other developers and publishers change the way they do things as well. EA leading from the front probably isn't going to happen. They haven't been exactly very good on all the fronts when it comes to having their workers work properly in healthy environments. Crunch is always going to be a problem with game development, whether they're trying to remove it or create other ways of solving crunch. It's an ongoing thing, and because EA is so big, there's just the problems are multiplied. They're bigger, there's more of them. So yeah, people bash on EA like they bash on any big software company like Microsoft or Apple. So probably not going to see the innovations from big companies or big publishers, probably more from smaller ones that look at the style of games that are being released. For example, Warframe. They're going to be the ones that are doing the innovation and changing things, and then EA is going to play catch up just because they're so big and they're so slow. That's just how it goes. So we look to the smaller publishers for innovation and changing how the industry does its job, and then the big boys sort of catch on and go, oh, that's what we should be doing. Yeah, we're going to throw money at that. And that's their solution. They throw money at it and try to have a hands-off approach. Now they're saying they're having a more client-centered focus. I don't know what that means. Don't know. But any thoughts you guys think how this is going to work out? Because clearly Anthem is not working, even though it's sold very well and they're happy with what money they made. I don't think Anthem is going to be changing the way that we look at games or are going to be buying games anymore, because we're not going to put up for it. We're not going to put money down. We're not going to care if another looter shooter comes out and it has dozens and dozens of bugs and takes months and months to fix just to get into a playable state. So What are your thoughts? Leave in the comments below. Thanks for listening. We'll see you soon.